I'm joined by David Byrne. And David, I have to tell you, I don't get nervous often anymore, but I did get nervous for Bruce Springsteen, and this is the same feeling.
Well, I'm not going to jump or do anything. No sudden movements.
I was hoping you would jump.
No,
that was my first
movements.
question. Will you jump? So that's a no.
Yeah,
will not
no.
jump.
I'm not going to
David has kindly programmed a double feature for us, a very interesting double feature, starting with the Powell Pressburger written and directed 1946 film, A Matter of Life and Death. And then we'll get to Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire. First of all, David, who I feel like needs no introduction, but I have to give people a little one. You are quite simply one of the most influential musicians of your era. Singer, songwriter, frontman for the Talking Heads, and then on your own, an enormously talented musician who's collaborated with some of the best people in this business. You also have won an Oscar for Best Original Score for the 1987 film The Last Emperor, and an Academy Award nominee for Best Song for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And you've scored 5 or 6 movies and directed one, True Stories, 1986. I take it movies have been an important part of your artistic life.
They have. There was a moment when I went to art school after high school.
Where'd you go to art school?
In Rhode Island. It's called Rhode Island School of Design. And these weren't classes, but there were certain evenings where they would show kind of art films and foreign films and things like that. And all the students could go. You didn't have to be a film major or anything like that. So I got to see all these films that I never saw when I was growing up in suburban Baltimore. I didn't even know these films existed. Like a Fellini movie one night. And I remember thinking, that was maybe the strangest thing I've ever seen, and I can't make any sense of it whatsoever.
But you were...
I was just mesmerized, totally mesmerized.
Kept thinking about it.
Kept thinking about it. Yeah. I remember seeing the same movie decades later and going, well, now that I see it now, it makes total sense. It's surreal, but the story, every one of these images makes total sense. I think there might have been Godard movies and some other kinds of things they did.
Yeah, I'm sure that was the case.
So these kind of things were kind of blowing my mind and making me realize that, film can be a lot broader than what I saw in suburban Baltimore.
So why'd you pick these 2 movies? Let's start with A Matter of Life and Death. What draws you to that? It's
slightly experimental in certain kinds of ways, but it's also very romantic and sentimental at the same time. It's an odd combination of being kind of radical in the way that it's done and the structure and visuals, but then the story that's being told is very, very heart-wrenching and sentimental. There's a pilot who gets shot down over the English Channel.
He has no parachute, and he's talking to this woman over the radio first.
He's talking to this woman, and you can just tell there's a connection.
This is such nonsense.
No, it's not. It's the best sense I ever heard. I was lucky to get you, June. Can't be helped about the parachute. I have my wingsuit anyway, big white ones. I hope they haven't got all modern. I'd hate to have a prop instead of wings.
You think he's going to die.
Yeah.
He doesn't die. He was supposed to die, but he didn't die. He washes up. She finds it. And they fall in love, of course.
Of course.
And then the clerical folks from heaven come and go.
Then the bureaucracy of heaven gets involved.
Yeah, which is great. Heaven is a bureaucracy.
Yeah.
That's not the only movie to do that, but heaven is a bureaucracy, and they go, whoa, we've had a little clerical error here. You're not supposed to be alive, and you're definitely not supposed to have fallen in love with this woman, because that really upsets everything.
Right, that's right.
He's got to argue that, no, wait a minute, you can't take this away from me now.
Right. And then it turns into an experimental courtroom drama. Right?
Yes,
that's right.
The courtroom is in heaven.
That's right. It's good.
Yes, and it's just like you go to heaven and it's like millions of people, the old philosophers and the old soldiers and everyone historically who's ever existed. They're all there.
All there.
Listening.
David, great stuff. We'll talk more after the film. Here it is from 1946, written and directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. David Niven and Kim Hunter lead the cast of A Matter of Life and Death. I am back with David Byrne. He programmed tonight's double feature, A Matter of Life and Death, you just saw, with David Niven, Kim Hunter, and Marius Goering as Conductor 71. So wonderfully memorable. Roger Livesey also as as Dr. Frank.
And who did you spot in heaven?
Richard Attenborough. Yeah, I think he's 23 years old, but he's there in that first scene in heaven when they're waiting for the pilots to come in who've been killed in battle. And I'm like, God, that guy looks like Richard Attenborough. And I looked it up, and sure enough, it's Richard Attenborough. I think he's got one line.
It's heaven, isn't it?
He'd done a little acting, then, of course, went on to a great career as an actor and as a filmmaker. You can guess how it's going to end, that somehow this has to work out for them. Otherwise, it becomes a very different kind of movie experience.
Could be a very short movie, too.
That's right, yeah. And I suppose if you're feeling cynical, you could describe that as corny. As you said, some friends of yours have not liked it because it's too corny. I always think that if, corniness is executed effectively, then it's executed effectively and it's wonderful, right?
Yes. I think people might be surprised that I really like a movie this sentimental, this romantic.
Are you a sentimental person?
I don't know if I am that sentimental in real life.
Yeah.
But in the world of movies, yeah, I totally go with it. Especially when the world that it creates is something very unusual and exciting and evocative.
Matter of Life and Death, and the film you picked next, made just over 40 years later in 1987, the Wim Wenders film Wings of Desire, both represents, angelic intervention, but this is not in any way a typical or a storybook portrayal of angels.
Yes, the angels are not kind of typically angelic. They're kind of bureaucratic and sometimes foolish and a little bit silly and petty.
Definitely, right. Petty, that's right.
All those kinds of
protecting their turf.
Yes,
right?
All those kinds of things. They've kind of worked that into it, which is, I think, that it's just wonderful.
Yeah, we've hardly mentioned David Niven and Kim Hunter, but a lot of the film's success, I think, is the star power that the two of these differently trained actors, one very English, David Niven, and Kim Hunter, a product of the Actors Studio in the States.
Yeah, which would be an odd combination. Very different acting styles.
But you have no trouble believing that they fell in love on the phone, essentially, on the radio, but on the phone. Yeah. Do you automatically think of this with the next film you program? The Wim Wenders, Wings of Desire from '87? Like they're...
No. I submitted a long list of movies that I thought, let me give you like 10 or a dozen movies to choose two that, you think would be good to talk about. And when I looked at the choice, I realized, oh my goodness.
Perfect.
These movies are perfect double feature. There's so many similarities. Not in exactly the story, but both of them have elements of color and black and white.
Yep.
A little bit of Wizard of Oz thing going on there. And heaven, in this case, heaven is black and white, the movie we've just seen.
In Matter of Life and Death, heaven is black and white. And,
yes.
And earth is in color, yeah.
Which that's telling you something. It's
right.
telling you that our lives that we live here are in Technicolor.
That's right. David, thanks very much. This was great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's do it again, because coming up next is the back half of our David Byrne double feature, Wings of Desire from 1987, directed by Wim Wenders and starring the great Bruno Ganz, is next on TCM. I'm joined by musician David Byrne. I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable. I'll do it quickly. I'll just say you are one of the singular musicians of your era, one of the most influential musicians and composers, and it's an honor that you're here, and I'm thrilled that you love movies as much as you do.
Thank you so much.
David has programmed a double feature night, part of our weekly double feature programmed by artists like yourself. So thanks so much for doing this. So we just had A Matter of Life and Death, the Powell Pressburger film from 1946. Up next, from 1987, directed by Wim Wenders, Wings of Desire. We never see the afterlife in Wings of Desire, but it is a very spiritual movie, and it is connected to what we imagine happens to us after we're gone. Do you recall the first time you saw Wings of Desire?
Probably very shortly after it came out in 1987, I guess.
Had you met Wim Wenders at that point?
Briefly, a little bit. He's a big music fan.
And he wanted to have dinner with you, right? He called you up, right?
Yeah. We got together. There was a hope that this theater piece I was working on there would get translated into a movie somehow in Berlin. That never happened, but we got to know one another. I think this was a turning point in his life, this film.
How come?
I think he really became a much more kind of spiritual person after or during the making of this film.
What grabs you about Wings of Desire?
Very similar to the earlier movie we have, some of you anyway, have already seen.
Yeah, Matter of Life and Death.
In that it's another experimental romance. It's very sentimental. In this case, sentimental and spiritual. Part of the movie's in black and white. Occasionally, we get the view of the Earthlings, which is in color. But mostly, we're seeing things from the point of view of the angels.
Primarily two angels here. Otto Sander is one of the angels, and then the great Bruno Ganz is really who propels this story. And they've been angels for thousands of years. Their whole job is to comfort people in distress, right?
But they can't talk to them.
Can't talk to them. They can't force them to do something. And occasionally, comfort doesn't work.
Early scenes in the movie where you're kind of seeing what the angels do, experiencing what they experience, hearing people's thoughts as they kind of float over the humanity of Berlin. To me, that was just heartbreaking.
Yeah, because they're on a plane. They're hearing people on a plane arriving in Berlin, or they're just in the streets at a coffee shop. The angels appear to congregate at the library.
Yes, you can hear all the thoughts of the people in the library and people who are troubled and people who are going through their normal lives. The charm of the movie is that the people are very ordinary.
Oh, they're
just
ordinary.
They're just regular. It's just regular people going about their lives, and all the troubles and heartaches and concerns that they have. Some of which are really petty, some of which are deeply profound.
And Bruno Ganz, the basic story is he falls for a mere mortal, a trapeze artist in a failing circus.
It's a very simple story,
right?
The kind of story that's been told many, many times before, but it's incredibly well done. Because you really get the humanity. It's this view of humanity viewed from this, heavenly, angelic point of view. And you just imagine, what if we could zoom out on ourselves?
Right.
What would we look like? What would our thoughts appear like? And you get a little taste of that, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Peter Falk is in the movie.
Yeah, we don't want to reveal that how it fits into the story, but there's Peter Falk having a curry burst.
Peter Falk, playing actor Peter Falk.
I'm so happy to see you.
And you get a mini Nick Cave concert.
Oh, you definitely get a little mini Nick Cave concert.
Somehow Nick Cave's music and the concerns of his songs and what the songs are about, it fits into the story as well. A lot of material of his that I like the best is harsh or looking at a harsh reality, but it's also very sentimental at the same time, in the same way that this movie is. That's where I think it fits really well. I mean, occasionally I find his music sometimes too aggressive, sometimes for my taste. But when it's not, it's got that kind of tension between kind of love and kind of this really harsh, ugly reality.
David, that was great. Let's take a look at the movie, and then we'll speak more afterwards.
Okay.
I have many questions to ask you about Wim Wenders and about art. Here's the film, directed by Wim Wenders, with a cast led by Bruno Ganz and Solveig Dummartin. This is Wings of Desire. Back with David Byrne, who is programmed tonight's double feature, part of our series of two movies from one artist. Thanks very much for doing this, David. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for showing these movies.
David picked Matter of Life and Death, the Powell Pressburger movie. We had that earlier tonight. Now this Wings of Desire, Wim Wenders film. So Wim has become a friend of yours, yes?
Yes. We got to know one another.
It must be satisfying to you as a, I don't know how else to say it without sounding silly, but I mean, as the complicated artist that you are, to find what seems to me to be sort of a kindred spirit in Wim Wenders.
We did kind of do things together. We did a song for his next film. He described the scene, and we had a track that we hadn't used that didn't have any words, so I could write words based on the scene he described to me. And then he did a kind of music video for the song that played in the film as well. So, yeah, there was a real connection there. Tying the two films together. A Matter of Life and Death and Wings of Desire, yeah. One time when Wim Wenders was in New York, he called me up and said, David, would you like to meet Michael Powell? I'm at his apartment right now. I would just drop everything and go over and just to say hi. Yeah. Both these films use black and white
and color. Matter of Life and Death, color on Earth, so there's more color because more of the film is on Earth, but black and white upstairs. And most of Wings of Desire in black and white because that's the perspective of the angels, but on the few times that we get to see the situation from either Solveig Dunmartin's point of view or Peter Falk's, we get color. Both movies beautifully shot.
Wings of Desire was shot by Henri Alekhan,
Yeah.
who Wim would tell everyone, this is the guy who shot Beauty and the Beast, which was many, many decades before.
Yeah.
So Wim was thinking, how did I get this guy out of retirement? How did I manage to do this? And it's like the most luscious black and white in that movie.
It is unbelievably lush black and white. And Matter of Life and Death, shot by the great Jack Cardiff with the 3-strip Technicolor on Earth, but it's very vibrant.
It's like somebody's moved the saturation slider and go, let's crank that a little further.
Yeah, but of course it works. We're sitting here talking about it.
Yeah.
You've scored some fairly mainstream movies, Jonathan Demme film, for example, Married to the Mob, not the only one you've done. But what's that process like of scoring a film for a director you trust?
I'm not someone who can score a film and in a way that, say, John Williams can sometimes, where he kind of hits all the kind of beats of what's happening in the scene. Like when a door opens, the music changes. When somebody looks at the other person, the music might change a little bit, and it's kind of helping you, something's happening here, something's happening here. I can do more like establish the mood of the whole scene. And it's always best when the director can really say, this is what I see happening here, and this is how I want it to feel, and this is where you've got kind of really clear parameter of what's needed.
David Byrne, this has been a pleasure. Matter of Life and Death and Wings of Desire, a wonderful double feature. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. This is fun.
Hope you enjoyed David Byrne tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and keep watching TCM because, of course, the movies continue uncut and commercial-free.